Hello and welcome to a brand new series called The Practical Side on Excel Academy's YouTube channel. So, this is a show where we'll be having experts from the field of law, like chartered accountants, like company secretaries, lawyers, and also cost accountants, and we discuss the practical side of the different laws which we have in the company secretary course. And today, joining me is a very special guest, Advocate Anirudh MB. Anirudh MB is practicing in Bangalore as an advocate, and he works with Dua Associates, a leading law firm in India. Hello, Anirudh. Welcome to the practical side.
Hi, hello. Good evening.
Yes, so we are very happy that you're here and you made some time for this discussion on the practical side. And today's topic is the Arbitration and Conciliation Act, the brief understanding of how it works practically. So, the first thing before we go with questions with Anirudh, for all the audience over here, we need to understand that we have different laws in the company secretary course. It is right from the Constitution of India to company law, even general laws like arbitration, economic and commercial laws. We always look at it from the exam point of view. But then when we get an expert opinion on how it works practically, we'll be able to understand the context in a better way and obviously do well in the exam because you can understand better. So, today our guest Anirudh will be sharing with us some of the practical things in the Arbitration and Conciliation Act. So, Anirudh, can you please share with us what are the kind of matters or cases which gets referred to arbitration?
See, to begin with, Alok, what is important to see is that nowadays in the business world, the contracts are reduced into writing, heavily negotiated, and contain complex and specific terms and obligations of each of the parties. Now, more often than not, businessmen, companies prefer inclusion of a clause in their agreement where they agree to resolve any disputes by arbitration. Now, proceeding from that line, to answer your question, there are a wide variety of disputes that do indeed get referred to adjudication by arbitration. For example, complex contracts like, say, a power plant construction contract or a road construction contract or establishment of a industrial sewage treatment plant, or you can even take, for example, simple disputes such as uh, simple agreements rather between landlords and tenants that do get referred to by arbitration because parties simply chose to have their disputes adjudicated by arbitration.
Okay. So, when you gave us examples like, let's say, even a lease agreement between a landlord and tenant, so I'm just presuming the stakes are high, like it is in crores or at least in higher number of lakhs. So, is it true that only the bigger matters where the stakes are high gets referred to arbitration, or how is it? Can you give us a ballpark figure or something of that sort?
See, Alok, the larger aspect, the understanding in, say, the eyes of the students is that it is only big disputes that require adjudication by arbitration. Now, it can be a simple dispute, say, between two neighboring landowners who say that let us have our disputes resolved by arbitration. It's not necessary that it's only high value commercial transactions that require to be adjudicated by arbitration, though it is the corporate world that has given a lot of importance to adjudication of disputes by arbitration because from their perspective, because time is money, they would prefer to have their disputes adjudicated by arbitration, and that is the key selling point for arbitration as such.
So what you're saying is most of the arbitration is driven because of the corporates have embraced it more than, let's say, the common man with different civil disputes or other things which they have.
Yes, certainly. And over a period of time, professionals, that is lawyers, company secretaries, chartered accountants, have recommended over a period of time that the parties include a clause in their agreement referring to having their disputes adjudicated by arbitration. Nowadays, in fact, even if you look at consumer products
Yeah.
of, say, a value of 20 or 30,000 rupees, where there's a contract involved, where there's a service associated along with the product, or if you look at apartment buyers agreements where people, individuals go and seek to buy apartments, even there as well, arbitration clauses are included solely because on the other side there's a company and the party purchasing is an individual. People by voluntarily adopt an arbitration clause in their agreements.
Yeah. So since you're talking about the clause, what are some of the things which should be kept in mind while drafting the clause? Because most of the company secretaries may be involved. That is before even if it goes to arbitration at the time of drafting. So as a lawyer who's dealing with adjudication of arbitration, what is your inputs on the clause? What should be there in the clause?
On a practical view, I would suggest that the simpler the clause is kept, the better it is.
Okay.
One particular aspect that would be required to be taken into consideration is what laws the parties want to apply. So if there are Indian parties involved in an arbitration in a contract, it would of course be advisable to have the dispute adjudicated in accordance with the laws of India. And with the 2019 amendment, the law has been amended to encourage institutional arbitrations where there will be private institutions already established for adjudication of disputes by arbitration. So that is also something to be taken into consideration. And of course, the procedure, it can be agreed upon in advance, but it's advisable to keep it simple and the place where the arbitration is to take place so that parties are clear that if at all the a dispute arises and it has to be adjudicated, the parties are clear where they have to go to participate in the adjudication of disputes.
So can arbitration even be done online now in our COVID and post-COVID environment? Let's say there's one party in Hong Kong and the other one is in Bangalore. So how does it work?
Certainly, with COVID, not just arbitration, but courts as well have taken on hearing of cases by video conferencing, and that is always possible and
Okay.
should in fact be encouraged. Though there are certain aspects of a litigation proceeding or a arbitration proceedings that would require in-person hearing, that would, of course, parties can always determine depending on the stage of the proceedings, whether to have it via video conferencing or through in-person hearings.
Yeah. So when you told us about the clause being as simple as possible, so let's just take a scenario from like we have a clause and everything is going well, but then there is a difference of opinion between the parties to the contract or whoever is involved. So from that stage, how does it come to the table of a lawyer or a law firm? Like generally, how does it happen?
So to give you a practical perspective of how it would work is during the course when a contract is running and dispute arises, that is a party A doesn't agree with party B as to the way forward,
Yeah.
or they request things that are required to be done which the other party is refusing, whether fairly or unfairly, it would depend on adjudication, is when a notice is issued by the aggrieved party to the opposite party, specifically stating in writing as to what their grievance is and calling upon the other side to resolve the dispute. And alternatively, it can also be stated by the party who is aggrieved that they are invoking the arbitration clause and hence they're depending on again on the facts of the each contractual clause, they invoke the arbitration clause and say, I'm nominating Mr. XYZ to as my arbitrator. You please concur so that the dispute can be referred to arbitration and resolved as contemplated in the agreement.
Okay.
And
So now let's say in whatever you said, if we have to have an example like an illustration. So there's a landlord and there's a contract for let's say 5 years for for the tenant for the lease, and because of COVID or whatever reason, the tenant says he doesn't want to respect the contract, and let's say the rent is into 10 lakhs per month. So this is a what do you say analogy or example of a dispute. So at this time, the landlord you said will send a notice, right?
yes, so the notice gets issued to the tenant.
Yeah.
Now, a tenant on receipt of his notice would it it may be issued by a party or an advocate, would then read it and then take it to his lawyer or his advisor or discuss it internally and say, how best do I reply to this notice? And they may take whatever stance that they want to take in the reply. Uh, Parties, when a dispute arises, there are two possible scenarios. One is the parties will agree, they will agree upon the nomination of the arbitrator, and then they'll proceed to have the disputes adjudicated before the arbitral tribunal. If now there's a provision under the Arbitration Conciliation Act, that is Section 11, which all your students would know, where if a party fails to give effect to the arbitration agreement, they can approach the jurisdictional court to appoint the arbitrator in terms of the arbitration agreement.
Yes.
Now you can have arbitral tribunals of a sole arbitrator, or it can also comprise of 3 arbitrators. So depending on how the situation evolves, or depending again on the clause, if the other party is unfairly refusing to agree to the nominee arbitrator, then you can approach the court, and the court would appoint an arbitrator on behalf of the other party, and then the arbitrator will receive intimation from the court that so and so agreement you have been nominated as an arbitrator. You please enter reference and take up the case for hearing. That is how the arbitral tribunal gets to get constituted.
Great. So, in fact, that brings me to my next question, which students really want to know, because they always study about the process, but process is something which is completely practical. So, if you could briefly walk us through the process once the tribunal is constituted, what is the process? So, if you give a brief overview, I think that will help students to understand the practical side of this.
See, under the Arbitration and Conciliation Act, the rules of Evidence Act and so also the Code of Civil Procedure strictly do not apply. But nonetheless, the practice has always been to adhere to the process, the procedure prescribed under the Code of Civil Procedure 1908. This enables the parties to proceed in a way the courts would adjudicate, but the rules are not formal and the rules are not technical. The tribunal has always the freedom to formulate as to how the proceedings are to be conducted. Now, just to give you an example, parties may agree that, look, we will not lead any evidence, we will not have any witnesses. Let us just go by documents exchanged between the parties and then have our disputes adjudicated. Parties may also agree that let us have no oral hearings whatsoever and let everything be conducted on the basis of written submissions. Now, this is always subject to what the parties agree. To give you a practical perspective, once the tribunal is constituted, the arbitrator will intimate both parties that he is having a first hearing at time so and so and place so and so. Then the parties appear. They may be represented through advocates. More often than not, the parties would prefer the advocates to be present. And the first hearing is held where the arbitrator fixes the timeline for the proceedings. More often than not, the first hearing will give detailed timelines as to when the claim statement is to be filed by the party invoking the arbitration clause, when the statement of defense is to be filed by the opposite party, when the rejoinders, if any, are to be filed, and dates fixed for framing of issues. That is the primary disputes of what the tribunal recognizes what the primary dispute between the parties is, and then parties are given the freedom whether they want to lead evidence or just go by documents that have been exchanged, and that will be preceded by trial, that is examination of witnesses and the cross-examination by the opposite side, preceded by final arguments. Now, in the meanwhile, just like in a court case, parties may prefer filing of interlocutory applications where they may want to seek production of documents from the other side, or they may want to produce additional documents, or they may dispute the jurisdiction of the tribunal itself, or they may ask for framing of a preliminary issue where they say that the scope of adjudication is very narrow, so let us be done with the process in a speedy manner. This is the way typically the proceedings would be
Yeah, I
conducted.
think that helps to at least get an overview, and for the purposes of this discussion, that is more than sufficient. We can always look at it in much detail or more specific later. So now coming to the role of the professional, whether it is a lawyer or a company secretary or chartered accountant, what is the role? Because as of now, almost as far as I know, most of it is handled by advocates or lawyers. Very few chartered accountant and company secretaries are getting into it. So if you can share what is the role and what is expected from the professional, it will really help and probably also inspire many of them to take it up further.
See, given that this is for a community of company secretary students who will be company secretaries in the near foreseeable future,
Yeah.
what my experience in working with legal officers or company secretaries or chartered accountants or CFOs has been that the key to managing a case is the moment you get a notice, have all the documents compiled in a chronological order and prepare a brief note of containing dates and events and what the dispute between the parties is. This will greatly enable any person, be it an advocate or any other professional, who will appear before a arbitral tribunal for the purpose of adjudication in the matter. That is the key primary exercise that is required to be done. And more often than not, it will be the business or operation side of the business that will be involved on day-to-day execution of the contracts. Now, their inputs is very crucial. So it is always better to get the people on at the relevant point in time into a discussion and note down key issues that have arisen and where they stand on merits. With these documents in place, you can then proceed to engage an advocate, get his inputs, get his views on the merits of the matter, and then proceed to fight the dispute. In fact, what I would say is this not only applies to an arbitration proceedings, but any other dispute whatsoever. The key is having records in place and relevant inputs by the persons involved in the operation of the contract.
Yeah, I think that's actually a very good input because even a company secretary's role is all about maintaining the records properly, making sure that every single document is in compliance with the law. So I'm sure that kind of background will help company secretaries if they're interested in arbitration. So from
And
your
and
experience,
just to add one very
yeah,
crucial thing is many a time for the purpose of saving revenue or for other strategical reasons or for absence of notice, the instruments, the contracts that are entered into are not adequately stamped, or if they're
yes,
required to be registered, that is not done. So that is one key thing that any professional is to see whenever they see a document. That is whether it adequately stamped or not. And it's always better to have it adequately stamped. And in case of doubt, the professional concern can always have the instrument adjudicated or evaluated by the adjudicating authority, that's the stamps department, before executing any written document.
okay. So if it is not adequately stamped, what is the remedy which is there, or is it a deadlock?
Okay, so when a document is insufficiently stamped under the Karnataka Stamp Act 1957, it has to be impounded by the authority or the judicial authority or the executive authority receiving the instrument. Now, in a court of law, the court has no option but to impound the instrument and impose a penalty that is up to 10 times the penalty payable.
Yes.
Now, let's say take a instrument such as a
Even share
shareholders or a
certificates.
share subscription agreement,
Yeah.
and under the Stamp Act, again, if the entire document is seen, it may have several limbs to that contract. Now, you would be required to pay stamp duty on each aspect of the instrument.
Yeah.
Now, if the stamp duty or let's take, for example, a deed of hypothecation of mobiles, if the stamp duty payable, say, is a sum of rupees 10 lakh, and then if the stamp duty is not adequately paid, or if it's a deed of guarantee, it's not adequately paid, then the court has no option but to impound the instrument and impose 10 times the penalty. Now, 10 times 10 lakhs is a crore. That along with the stamp duty of 10 lakhs is nearly a crore and 10 lakhs. So that's a humongous outflow from for a company, which has to be seen at the preliminary stage itself. Now, in the event an instrument is inadequately stamped, you present it before the jurisdiction district registrar and seek to pay the stamp duty along with the penalty, which may be payable. Now, the district registrar has the leeway to impose a penalty ranging from 1 to 10x times the penalty payable. And if you make out the bona fide circumstances as to why the company could not pay the stamp duty to begin with in the first place, it being a matter of revenue for the government, the district registrar would definitely wish to collect the stamp duty in one, and they will impose
Have a
penalty
strict
as per their
interpretation or
discretion.
a conservative view.
Yeah, they will exercise their discretion, and given the bona fides of the company or the professional, they would definitely collect the revenue and certify that it has been adequately stamped in accordance with law.
Yeah, then we can go ahead with the arbitration.
Yes.
So coming to that, now that you told about the stamp duty, how cheap or costly is arbitration? Because theoretically, in the books, it's always given arbitration is a very cheap form of dispute resolution. It's very affordable, etc. So can you please share your insights on this?
You see, there are two ways of looking at it. Now, given that the arbitration is encouraged in case of commercial dispute where the stakes run from few crores to few hundred crores or maybe even few thousands of crores, the costs when it comes to adjudication of such a dispute would be negligible in terms of the arbitrator fees, or be it in terms of paying professionals to represent the parties. It will seem minuscule, but if it comes to a simple matter where the amount involved is perhaps a few lakhs, then it may not make sense for parties to have an ad hoc arbitral tribunal constituted. They may always also go for institutional arbitration. Now, for example, the Honorable Karnataka High Court has established the arbitration center in Bangalore, where the fee prescribed is fixed depending on the valuation of the dispute. Now, if you were to fall in a situation where even that is working out to be too expensive and parties still want to have their disputes adjudicated by arbitration, they can always engage a an advocate who's willing to, or any other professional, even for example, a company secretary whom they trust, and then they can have the disputes adjudicated and be bound by the award that the professional would pass.
Okay,
So
okay, that is interesting.
the there is maximum flexibility when it comes to having a matter adjudicated by arbitration. That is one of the key benefits. Now,
Yeah,
for
I think
example,
that's
you can be an arbitrator, or a student can be an arbitrator, provided they have the requisite experience to adjudicate disputes.
yeah, and also on that subject matter and the what is the kind of and the contract and those clauses, you should have that experience. That is the most crucial.
Now, interestingly, if you look at India,
Yeah,
there used to be panchayats.
correct.
Now, panchayat is a composition of 5 village headmen that used to be there in the ancient and medieval times, why in fact even during the British regime.
Yeah,
People would believe that these 5 people are experienced enough and we will have the dispute adjudicated by them. Now, that is nothing but arbitration.
and
There were
any
no
kind of
exclusive.
dispute, whether it is land or family, and they used to resolve everything.
Yes. And in fact, families where there is a private disputes involved, they always approach the persons whom they trust and say, let us resolve these disputes.
True,
It is just that it is not given a formal name of arbitration.
but it is.
Disputes do get resolved.
Yeah, I think that's a really good input, and that will really widen the perspective of students. From your experience, Anirudh, since you've been in practice for a little over a decade now, are the number of cases in the formal arbitration, which that is the Arbitration and Conciliation Act, as is it increasing? Are more people embracing it? And what is the with this context? How do you see the future?
Uh, Arbitration has been embraced for quite some time now by the Indian business houses, also the foreign companies that operate out of India. And in fact, even simple agreements, there is a view to include the arbitration clause. In fact, there are if you get into the aspect of commercial transactions where there are multiple agreements. Now, let's take an example of there being a manufacturer, there being a distributor, there being a retailer in the chain of businesses. Now, what end product a retailer sells might be affected by what agreement is between the manufacturer and the distributor concerned. So when there are multiple contracts involved, it makes sense to refer all parties to adjudication of disputes by arbitration. So in the multi-tier contracts, it definitely helps rather than resolving the dispute only between a distributor and retailer, and later on it is discovered that the fault was at the manufacturer's end. It again leads to more prolonged proceedings. So the general outlook has been pro-arbitration in India, and with the enactment of the Commercial Courts Act, even matters that involved, say, the intervention of the court prior to constitution of the arbitral tribunal under Section 9 is before a commercial court. So that also sees adjudication of disputes in a speedy way.
Okay. So, considering most of our audience are students who are studying the company secretary course, what do you think are the career opportunities, keeping in mind the Arbitration and Conciliation Act? If you could just share a few points.
Well, that's a very welcome question indeed. Now, if I were to put myself in the shoes of a student who is going to be a company secretary and who envision themselves as being arbitrators in the future, what I would suggest is one, work with people in the particular advocates who specialize in arbitration law and practice. That will give you a headway into the profession. It takes, well, at least a few years to gain a foothold as to how
Things work
the
practically.
arbitration law and practice works.
Yeah.
So initially that should be the outlook. If the end objective, if the students are very clear that that's where they want to be, then you have to start with a firm or an advocate who exclusively practices arbitration law.
Okay. I think that's a good suggestion. I have one last question. That is the recent Arbitration and Conciliation Amendment Act of 2019. Why was this Amendment Act required? What were the gaps in the earlier law? If you could again just share a few points, that will be helpful.
I will say two things in that regard. One, it gave impetus to, rather recognition to adjudication of disputes by institutions. So the Act, the 2019 Amendment Act, one of the key features is that they recognize institutions to be at the forefront of arbitration law and practice in India. So basically, the whole fundamental aspect of litigation arbitration is that they want minimal interference by courts in any part of the process. Now, having regard to that approach, now let's say, for example, if there's an interim relief that is required, or if the arbitrators are to be appointed and the opposite party is refusing to appoint, right now the courts adjudicate upon that particular aspect. Now, with the amendment in 2019, there is proposals to, rather than proposals to have the Arbitration Council of India that will rate and grade and regulate institutional arbitration. So this will be like establishing perhaps a parallel system of courts that would be, again, the framework would be fixed where parties are very clear as to what the costs involved are and how speedily the disputes can be adjudicated with the rating of institutions. If they, on whatever various parameters, you can always be sure that if you were to go to XYZ institution, the dispute will be adjudicated in a speedy manner. Now, that is one of the key amendments in the 2019 enactment that I would bring to the notice of the students.
Yeah. So, going by your inputs, it's very clear that especially the student should understand that the government of India clearly sees that arbitration is going to be, or they want arbitration to be one of the main methods of dispute resolution. Of course, the courts will always be there, but we know very well the courts are overburdened. There are lakhs and lakhs of cases which are pending, and that really hurts, justice being getting delayed. So that is a very good message, where for every student you can consider, like, of course there are 100 laws which we study in the CS course, but this is also one you can consider. And also ICSI is taking lot of steps to encourage company secretaries to get into the practical practice of arbitration and the Conciliation Act, and not just stick to the company law or FEMA. So thank you very much, Anirudh, for joining us. It was a really wonderful interview. Your insights was very, very helpful.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Alok. Thank you.
Yeah. So, dear students, make sure that if you like this video, please give a thumbs up. Subscribe to Excel Academy if you have not yet subscribed, and watch our Excel Academy for more such interviews with experts on different aspects of law. Thank you very much, and all the best to you.